I hope you remember a lesson we had about breathing, because that is kind of important to appear like a mortal. I would also advise you to make the blood that you drink a little bit thinner with water. It doesn't taste as good, but it's better if it looks like wine or juice than blood, because if someone sees you drinking it, that's not very good. Also, if you drink directly from people, you kinda should remember to not let anyone see that. It's much easier to buy blood in these hospitals, in those fancy little packs. It's quite funny how people just are drained now with needles, and you can just get the blood easily that way without raising much suspicion, at least if you are dressed as a medic and try to grab some blood for a emergency case that you have. Back in my day, we also drained people medically, but with a knife and some bloodletting. Didn't raise too much suspicion either, but people regularly died from it, so it kinda missed the point. Anyway, since you're here now, don't forget, it is I, Orkar Isber, who is your guide through the Sanguine Archives, where we explore the lore for this world of darkness from a perspective of and a focus on vampires, mainly Clan Bali. So let me be your guide through the memories of the blood for tonight. Follow me. In tonight's lesson, I will give you an introduction to the clans of vampires, because as I said, you seem to be quite lacking in that knowledge, but it is important. I hope you didn't forget to make the magical gesture of the thumbs up in order to pass the traps and enchantments, but you don't smell burnt, so I guess you should be fine. We already covered in the lecture about vampirism itself what clans are. Now I want to go a bit more in depth on what clans there actually are. I will start with the Tremere, which is a kind of blood sorcery cult. They are the clan of magic, blood magic. They call it that. And they're also kind of our best friends among the other clans. Because we Bali have infiltrated the Tremere to a high degree, as I already told you. We are actually inside the Council of Seven and pretty much every chantry they have in the Order of the Worm. The Tremere have a blood bond, or are close to a blood bond with their sire and the entire Circle of Seven, because they make a special ritual at their creation, at their embrace. Which means that they are quite loyal to us as well. However, the magic that they wield is laughable compared to what we have. We have access to everything they can do and have powers that they don't have access to. That said, aside from the thaumaturgical paths that allow them to wield magic, blood magic that is, one type of blood magic to be more precise, they also can read your mind and soul with the discipline of Auspex. And they can dominate your mind if you aren't careful. However, when it comes to dominating someone's mind, keep in mind that the lower generation wins, which means that the higher generation vampire can't ever dominate you. My second favorite among the clans are the old clan Tzimisce. They are called the old clan because you see there was this big revolt back in the day where they tried to kill all the elders of the clan, but many survived and still inhabit the ancient lands of Romania and Eastern Europe, where they still thrive as the lords, as the voivodes, as they call themselves. I mean, the real lords are us, the Bali, but whatever. The old clan Tzimisce are very close to us in so many ways. They actually worship demons, or at least interact with them regularly. They give them their krinas, that is their paths of Koldunic sorcery, which is similar to blood sorcery, but it doesn't actually require blood but the goodwill of a spirit, more precise, a demon. They learned everything from the earthbound demon Kupala, with our help of course, because the old clan Tzimisce is actually one of the most infested with Bali. We have gotten into bed with them since millennia now. We even helped them summon Kupala or better said, communicate, because he was already there in the earth, or she, I should say. Well, they have a very unique ability too, that of flesh crafting, where they can actually stretch your limbs. They can craft your bone like it was pottery. They can melt and bend your flesh as they please and turn you inside out while still being alive. They make very grotesque things with that power, and they can also look into your soul and mind. They have a quite unique weakness too. You see, most clans actually have a curse additional to those that all vampires share, and in case of the Tzimitzi, it is that they absolutely have to rest in the earth of their homeland. A little will do, a coffin filled with it usually is enough, but if they can't, they will grow weaker. The beast inside them will grow stronger, and it will be quite bad for them if they can't rest for a week. They may even enter torpor. I may actually refer to the last lesson that we had about, the whole vampire thing. You can fall into torpor, which is you basically just laying around like you were in coma until you wake up again and crave blood. Never let the hunger ride you. The clan of the Rose, the Toreador, is also a clan that I really like, and is highly infested with Bali because they make it so easy for us to pose as them. We already share many of our powers, you see. They have celerity, which is the art of being super fast, but it's one of the primary disciplines that every ghoul can learn, and most Bali start out as ghouls, which means you should already have mastered that power to some level at least. They also can read minds of people and influence them, and while we don't have that exact power that they have, Daimonion, which is our discipline, can mimic most effects of Auspex. And we and them share presence, which is your ability to supernaturally make yourself charismatic to a degree that people fall in love with you or run away in fear by your sheer presence. Their clan weakness is actually that they love art so much that sometimes they just turn catatonic while looking at a piece of art, so enthralled by it, so entangled into the art that they just can't let it be. It can be anything, music or pictures, sculptures, a poem. It can really be anything. And to mimic that is just so easy. Pick some art that you like and sometimes pretend to fall into this kind of catatonic state, just looking at it in awe. The Toreador are also highly infested by Bali for that very reason. Then we have the clan Salubri, the healers, the warriors and the seers, because they come in 3 different sects. That said though, those castes, as they call them, are quite few in number these days, almost vanished, and those who remain are almost exclusively in the Sabbat. The Sabbat, I will talk about that shortly. Let's just say that the Salubri are our sworn enemies for a long time, and we have won. They are infiltrated by us just like the other clans are, though it is kind of dangerous hiding amongst them because they have powers with Valoran, which is the warrior caste specialty, and Obeah, which is the healer caste specialty, with which they can actually not only find out that you're a Bali, they can seriously hurt you with it. You will actually take a lot of damage from their skills. However, luckily, their blood and ours is very, very similar, which means that you can pass off as one of them if you can stomach trying to be or appear as moral and good. They are not the good guys though. They can only feed from willing victims, or in case of the warrior caste, ones that they defeated in honorable battle. You can pretend to have that as well, though it makes things a bit more complicated. Luckily though, those things from the hospital you can buy work just fine, as that blood was given freely and willingly. Malkavians are the clan of the moon, the insanity. They are indeed insane, just like Malkav, their founder. I should say that Malkav is also a seer with great potential. He is said to know all the answers, but none of the questions. Similarly, his offspring tend to know things that they absolutely shouldn't know. Luckily though, they usually don't know which of the voices in their heads to trust, and so they can be easy prey. However, you shouldn't underestimate them. They can turn themselves invisible, kind of, unnoticed. The power of obfuscate, which the Bali also have, I might say, which makes it rather easy to pass as a Malkavian whose weakness is that all of them are demented to some degree. They have all kinds of psychological and mental conditions that they suffer from. If you know a little bit about psychology, you can just pretend to have one yourself. Shouldn't be too difficult. However, they also have dementation, which is a unique power with which they can permanently damage and ruin your mind, so you might be a bit careful about that. Luckily for us Bali, we can also permanently damage people's minds by other means, so you can easily pretend to be Malkavian. Then there is of course the actual Tzimitzi, which are just the rebels that fled from the old clan Tzimitzi and are the leaders of the Sabbat. Not really something to add, just that they rarely ever have Kolduns, that is, people with Koldunic sorcery among them. The Ventrue though are a different topic. They are the so-called clan of kings. And while the Tzimitzi are often called the fiends, I think that the Ventrue are the actual, well, unpleasant company. They are hypocrisy incarnate. They say that they are all about honor, but they will drop it if it doesn't suit them. They pretend to be caring about their own so much and support each other so much, they actually have words for that. Hospitalitas, it is called. They have so many things that they say are important, but if pressured, they don't give a damn about any of those. However, you shouldn't underestimate them. They can take a beating because they are masters of fortitude. They can dominate your mind, which is also not too pleasant, and they know how to wield power and take the heat, if you know what I mean. They are usually the self-proclaimed leaders, and while the Toreador have some princes, the Ventrue are the clan of princes. No other clan has as many princes as they have. However, they also are very famous crusaders, knights, fighters. Do not underestimate them. Don't take them lightly. They can do a lot of things and they have a lot of resources. And while usually they don't take their honorable accords too seriously, they sometimes will. And if a Ventrue actually gets help from others, you are in deep trouble, as they have a lot of ties with the corporate society of the mortals and immortals alike. I don't think any clan has nearly the resources that the Ventrue do. Luckily, they also have a weakness, which is that each Ventrue has a restriction on what kind of blood they can actually drink and feed from. Now what that is exactly depends on the individual, but once you know what they need to feed, it becomes so much easier to become their friends by providing them and influence them, because the Ventrue are first of all full of themselves and very arrogant. They will believe everything if you just make yourself look humble and on their side. They are pretty bad at, well, intrigues. That said, they are good at politicking overall, but they are kind of easy to exploit as well. The La Sombra are the clan of shadows. They actually are one of the more interesting bunch. They are easy to spot and hard to infiltrate, as they don't cast any type of reflection. Not in water, not in mirrors, not on photo cameras. Which is very difficult to copy, though you can try to do it with obfuscate. They also wield shadows like a power. They can use shadows to strangle you, to find you, to hide you, or to hide themselves. They can wear shadow like an armor, making it so much harder to injure them. They can throw shadow at you, injuring you. Luckily, some Bali have that ability as well, and if you are one of them, the Asaniali, or have learned it from them, you can pass as a La Sombra, because nobody but them usually wields Shadow. The Bruja are the clan of, well, fighters, I would say, rebels. That wasn't always the case. Back in the day when we ruled Carthage together with them, they were the clan of philosophers and thinkers. And while they still think and philosophize a lot these days, they do it on a whole different level. Gone are the days of academic debate and enlightenment, and it's all about rage and this need of being right with whatever political opinion you have, forcing your views on the world on everybody else. Many Bruja of today are communists and other things like social justice warriors, which sounds a bit weird, but they are about justice. That means the justice they think is right, which is pretty much the oppressive thing that everybody has and does. Now the Bruja, as a result of their hot-headedness, tend to fall into rage much more often and are ridden by the beast so much more regularly. It's not too difficult to pass off as one of those, as we share presence, and the other abilities that they have are speed, which means celerity, and potence, which means strength, which most of us have from the ghoulish days. Also, I might add that the Bruja are one of our biggest successes, where we managed to have pretty much the most prominent branch of the entire clan under our wing back in Carthage. The Cappadocians are, or rather were, the clan of death, the necromancers. They were usually posing as monks back in the Middle Ages. However, they were, shall we say, disposed by one of their fledglings. Augustus Giovanni drained the ancient antediluvian Ashur himself, which kinda makes the Giovanni the Cappadocians these days. However, they share different weaknesses. While they are both necromancers, the Cappadocians used to be the most corpse-like of vampires. Now they didn't rot, but they could never ever pass as a human, no matter the amount of makeup. While the Giovanni have very, very crooked teeth, which means that usually when you drink from mortals, I should have mentioned that in the last lesson, shouldn't I? Let's just say when you drink from mortals, it's usually a very pleasurable experience for them. Unless you're a Giovanni, then it hurts it hurts a lot. It makes them scream and don't want to repeat that. The Nosferatu, well... Oh, something I want to mention about the Giovanni. They are very depraved, which is why I like them so much. Now I don't really like to be one of them, but infiltrating them shouldn't be too hard for your moral standpoint and flexibility. They are a lot into incest, bestiality, and all kinds of necrophilic things. They are necrophiliacs, definitely. And they are a clan that is very used to a high lifestyle, and they continue that very perverted version of it in Undeath. So they are nice to have some holiday for relaxation. The Gangrel. Oh no, I was at the Nosferatu. My mind is a bit dizzy. The Nosferatu are actually not that easy to infiltrate because their curse is that they look absolutely horrible. You think you know ugly people, you haven't seen Nosferatu yet. They usually also stink and leave slime when they go anywhere. Luckily for them, they have obfuscate, which means they can turn themselves kind of invisible. They command animals, and they have great strength. Don't underestimate them. You don't want a Nosferatu hitman on your trail. They can attack you anytime out of nowhere with great strength and kill you before you even realize there was someone. And vanish after that as well. Infiltrating them can be done if you are quite ugly yourself or willing to go to a Tzimitzi to deform you with their flesh crafting ability. Commanding animals can be learned, it's not too difficult, but the main thing is really the ability to vanish into the shadows. The gangrel are the clan of the wilds. They are usually quite bestial in nature. They are more animal, more beast than human or vampire. They are not quite outcast of vampiric society, but they are not too welcome either. They are very prone to frenzying, which is when they are ridden by the beast. They usually look very obviously not human with all the kinds of bestial features that they gain when they frenzy. They can turn themselves into animals and all kinds of weird shapes. Some can even turn into mist, which is where that myth comes from. They can however survive in the wilds, and it is rumored that very bestial gangrel are so animal-like that even werewolves will let them live in their woods. Well, let's say live is not really the right word. Yeah, what else do we have? Oh yeah, the Ravenous, the tricksters. They are a fun bunch. They are on the one hand easy to infiltrate, on the other hand pretty difficult to infiltrate. From their disciplines, it's not too difficult to mimic those effects. They have chemistry, which is the ability to make illusions into reality and conjure up visions and pictures, which you can do with Daimonion as well to a specialized degree. However, the Ravenous are very family-like. Not every Ravenous belongs to a family of the gypsies, however, most do. And if no one else knows you, you can bet that they will discover that you aren't one of them rather quickly, and then it gets ugly. On the bright side, the Ravenous have vices that they have to commit. Some are rapists, some are murderers, some are diablerists. Basically, they can be a very fun bunch to stay with for a while. The true Bruja. Those are sometimes said to be a bloodline. However, the true Bruja are really close to the actual Bruja, and they call themselves that because they claim to actually go back to Troil himself, the actual antediluvian, and not Enoia who just drained him. It's sometimes a bit fuzzy, all of that. But the true Bruja are different enough because they have a special discipline with which they can actually command and change time itself. And that is something that even we cannot copy. So beware of them. Luckily though, they are very rare these days and nights. Then we have the Banu Hakim or Assamites. They are actually a clan that we cursed with diablerie addiction. They want vampire blood and crave it and drink it, and that's how we made them fall from grace. We are responsible for them losing all their status in vampiric society, making them into outcasts that sit in their strange castle of Alamut, hiding from everyone else. However, they are killers. They are assassins. They are hitmen of the highest degree. They know how to wield modern and ancient weapons alike. They are fighters and they have blood sorcerers too, with a very special kind of path that's difficult to copy. They are a pain to deal with, and it's difficult to infiltrate them because they specialized on sniffing out Bali. They are actually our worst enemies, ancient and in modern knights as well. They will do everything to get us. Luckily for us though, they are rare in the Western world. And if they are sent after you, it's likely not because they know that you are a Bali, but because someone hired them to kill you. So far there's only one Bali who managed to infiltrate them, and that is a figure mythical and legendary that even most Assamites don't believe that person is real. Urshulgi, the highest of the blood sorcerers and founder of the sorcerer caste, is actually a Bali, and kinda keeps the worst of the Bali off of us, though we sometimes have to sacrifice some Bali to them in order to satisfy them. And then the last one I want to mention here are the Sethites. The Setites are a very special bunch. First of all, they think that they don't come from Cain, but actually from the god Set himself. They think that they are darkness incarnated, the, well, followers, the cultists of Set. As a result, they are extremely vulnerable to light. Even bright lights, neon lights, will hurt them. They are easy to be blinded, and they can turn into snakes. The most interesting thing they can do though is misplace their heart, which means they can rip their hearts out of their body and just place them anywhere, leave them there, safe, while they walk around. You question why that is important? Well, usually you know what a stake is, right? If you stake a vampire through the heart, they become incapacitated. They stop to be able to move around. You kind of force them into a kind of torpor until the stake is removed. That only works if you pierce the heart though, which is, as I said, quite difficult if not impossible with a Setite. It's even said that some Setites can reform their bodies as long as their heart is intact, which makes them quite a pain to deal with, really. The really bad thing about them though is that they are masters of corruption. I mean, we are the grandmasters at least, if not the gods of corruption. We are way better than them. However, they know the game well enough that infiltrating them is almost impossible, and I don't know of anybody who actually managed it. That said, they're also our biggest, I'm not sure if you can call it enemies, but opponents and concurrents. You see, they do on a very amateurish level what we do, but they can do it openly. We can't. They are known for their corruption, and they tell everyone what the price is, which means that you can get their services or not, which is why they are tolerated. And as I said, they view us as enemies, as we are in their minds misguided. I would say they work in similar ways than we do, just for the wrong person. But whatever. I think this has gone on long enough for tonight. I think it's time to end the visit to the Sanguine Archives for tonight. I hope you learned something. It was I, Orkar Isber, the main scribe of the Sanguine Archives, giving you this lesson. If you want to help the archives to grow, you can actually become a subscribe and tend to the archives, copying texts, and learn something from those. When you decide to leave, don't forget to use the magical gesture of the thumbs up to deactivate the magical enchanted traps and wards up there and make it out alive. Well, kind of at least. If you want to help, I would be honored if you just told your friends about this and make them come here too. After all, knowledge is power, and they owe you if you give them some. Also, ring the bell when you leave, because that's the only way the door actually opens. Have a good night.